What is the ET agenda on Earth? Specifically, the Zeta Reticuli Grey ETs, known as the Grey ETs. We're going to find out today with Judy Carroll on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain. Stay tuned.
You got to accentuate the positive. Wow, I feel good. A little bit of feel good goes a long way.
You're listening to Karen Swain, teacher of deliberate creation, accentuating the positive, showing you a way to a better life.
Accentuating the positive, it's not just fad, it's sanity. Who in their right mind would accentuate anything else?
If you feel like that's what you want to do.
Hey, welcome to another show, Accentuating the Positive with Karen Swain on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7 and 105.3 FM. So great to be back with you all today. And I've got the wonderful Judy Carroll with me, who is in Queensland, Australia. Welcome, Judy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Karen. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Judy and I have actually chatted before on the show back in 2020, and I was re-listening to the conversation. We did a lot of laughing, I have to say, but gee, I spoke a lot. I was just saying to Judy, gee, I spoke a lot during that interview. I didn't shut up. And she said, oh, well, that's good because sometimes I get a bit shy.
I'm not a talker.
She's not a talker. And I'm like, well, I'm going to try and shut up and let you do the talking today.
Thanks.
We've actually already had a great chat already, talking before the show. The gorgeous Shirley's online. Hopefully you found your way back to us, Shirley. Hi. And Gem Air, welcome. Shirley says, hello, Judy.
Hi, Shirley again.
And Gem says, enjoy what Judy shares. So glad you have her on. Yeah, Judy is fascinating. We were just saying that we met physically very briefly about 8 years ago up in Byron Bay. We were both speaking at a conference up there that Mick and Catherine put on. They did two conferences. They had the Afterlife conference and then they had the UFO or something, Closer Contact conference. What did they call it? I can't remember what they called it.
I can't remember.
Close Contact,
Remember.
And I was saying to Judy, have you spoke at many conferences, in person? And she said, no, that's the only one. I'm like, because, in Australia, we don't have a lot of conferences that have this topic. We have a few groups that you can speak at, but not conferences, not like the US. They have conferences like this all over the place, right, Judy?
Yes. Oh, I think just about every city over there has one. All the main cities anyway, especially down in the southwest. Very, very popular. Yeah,
I'd like to see that change in Australia, and I'm going to be instrumental in changing it. But let me tell you a little bit about Judy. Born in Queensland, Australia, Reiki and Tai Chi teacher Judy Carroll has experienced ongoing contact with the ETs known as the Greys or Zetas since she was a child. She identifies as a blended soul with human and Zeta Grey ET DNA, whose conscious awareness spans two planetary connections, both Earth-human and Zeta Grey. Zeta, I think we say Zeta, Americans say Zeta, don't they?
Yes, they always have to remember. I say Zeta because I do so many interviews with America.
Absolutely. Judy's family background is in Creole, South American and Spanish, English and Romani. Gypsy, you got a bit of Gypsy in you. She left school to pursue a career as a professional flamenco dancer, following in the footsteps of her grandmother, who was also a dancer and a clairvoyant medium in the Romani tradition. A full awakening and connection with the ETs came in 1983, at the age of when you're around 30, with a daytime encounter during which several Greys appeared to Judy in full daylight, and she recognized them as family. So I love this. I've read this a few times. You didn't freak out at all? Greys turn up? Hello?
No, not at all.
And instead you're like,
it was a relief. I recognised, it's only you. Oh,
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Because most people are so asleep, even when they are connected. You know, we're asleep in our inside our human conscious that we freak out. But you didn't freak out at all. She was given a massive.
I think with a lot of people, it's a physiological reaction.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were given a massive download of information and advised regarding the mission being carried out on Earth, the part you were to play in it. So your mission, along with other blended souls now incarnating on Earth, and there are many, is to be an interplanetary ambassador to raise consciousness and connect a stagnant evolutionary timeline human consciousness has been experiencing by introducing more clarity and deeper understanding of what has happened here in the past, with an understanding of present time global events. They provide guidance on how to heal our future and to become a planetary civilization. And you've got 5 books. Let me go back to the branding. I want to put this up here, show you Judy's books. The Zeta Message or Zeta Message, Human by Day, Zeta by Night, Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth, Lessons in History. I've got to say, I haven't read any of these books and they sound fascinating. An Interview with an Alien, Comments by an Undercover ET. Undercover ET, and Cosmic Spirituality, Blending Religion and Science in Oneness. That sounds fascinating too. So the latest one, the 2 is Cosmic Spirituality, right? This is the latest one?
Yes.
And what's that one all about? Blending religion,
basically
science,
about what people down here call God, which is a universal energy form. So that's what that book's about. And just clearing up things like reincarnation being removed from religion. And I mean, it's such an important thing to understand about reincarnation. So I'll talk about that. And interdimensions, how we're all interdimensional beings, that we're not just 3D, we're way, way more than that. And connecting with our higher soul self is so important. That's what that book's about.
Sounds like an important book, a really important book. Yeah, the ETs have said to me about God. I was speaking at a conference, online conference recently. You know, humans go into this story about God. In order to contact God or speak to God, you have to pray, usually because you're distressed about something. You only talk to God when you want something. Please save my life, or please save my daughter's life. Or you sort of have to be holy and divine. And we talk about all this holiness, and it's sort of, the message is outside of like who we are just in our everyday lives. But the ETs have a different perspective, don't they? What is their perspective?
Absolutely. We understand, as do most ET races, that we have the God consciousness within us. All God is a universal consciousness. I like to think of God as being the super glue of the universe, which is a consciousness that dwells within all of us. And so in actual fact, this is how we operate in oneness. We all belong to this God energy that we can access anytime that we want to. It's just in ourselves. And the key to it is tapping into love as opposed to tapping into fear, because we have the God essence within. This keeps us empowered, and it's forgetting this that makes us disempowered, so that we're always looking outside of ourselves. You know, God will save me, Jesus will save me, an ET will save me, whoever. But it's actually all within ourselves. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, it's all there. It's who we are. I mean, even the concept of love on this planet, you know, you see things online, you see somebody doing kindness to others, and people like put it like, look at this extraordinary thing that's happening. This person is being kind to this other person, as if it's just not normal to be kind. It's like we've got to make love and God and kindness all just so normal. It's who we are. You know, people always looking for love.
That's what 5D is about. You know, people are saying, oh, we're going to move into 5D, but that's the only way you can do it, is by tuning into unconditional love. That's all 5D is. It's not being clairvoyant or being psychic or anything. Yeah, sure, you might have that, you might not. That doesn't matter. It's unconditional love. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. I love Judy's message. It's all love, 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 love. You talk about love a lot. And you've got your own podcast show. Judy and Paula Jane are the hosts of the podcast show Just Love. Paula Jane.
Yes.
So you've still got that going? Just Love. Weekly
look,
podcast.
we have. And I'm actually working on putting it together as a book at the moment.
Nice.
So I don't know where that'll go down the path. It's a massive job I've got ahead of me. I mean, you just finish one book and then start another one.
You sound like Preston, don't it?
Oh,
I was telling Judy before we went live, I'll have to introduce you to Dolly and Preston. And you've read Dolly's book that Preston did, and you've read a couple of Preston's book. I think they'd love to have you on the show, and you and Dolly would get on like a house on fire. You're very similar.
Oh, brilliant. I'd love to talk to them.
in your, your dual soul and mission on Earth. And so I want to say hi. There's lots of people online. I want to say hi to Diane. She says hi, Judy and Karen. Hello, gorgeous one. And Facebook user, I'm sorry, for some reason your name isn't coming up. Oh my gosh, Karen and Judy Carroll live. Oh, I know who that is.
Yeah, the pages to save a message.
Elsa Dillon. Something's going on with Facebook. Something's happening. But Carol, yay. How are you, dying one? Good to see you all. So for people that don't know, you haven't heard your message, you haven't heard your story, maybe we can just go over a bit about how you remembered. I mean, obviously you've designed this life before you came, but you came in as human like all of us through the river of oblivion or the veil of forgetfulness, and you had to remember. How did all that happen, Judy?
Well, with difficulty. I remember. Now, what happened, I specifically chose to come in without any consciousness of my ET side, because I wanted to experience the fear that people experience with ET contact. And to be able to do this, to be able to help people with it, which I do now, and that's part of my mission down here, or a very big part of my mission, I needed to experience the fear myself on a personal level. And so my whole childhood, I was absolutely terrified, very aware of something going on. I had an ongoing fear that someone was going to come into the house at night and take me. I mean, of course, I was being taken up on the ship, so I mean, it was happening. But I didn't have the conscious recall to understand what it was. And I often say this in interviews, but I'm embarrassed to say I would not go to sleep on my own until I was about 11 years old without Mum sitting beside me until I fell asleep. I was so scared. So obviously, I learned an awful lot from that. So when people have fear of the ETs and talk about it with me, they have no worries that I don't understand, because I do completely. I also, as a child, had the usual fear of puppets and dolls. I never liked dolls very much. I eventually got Mum to get me one because my school friends were pressuring me, and they all had dolls and I didn't have one. But it spent most of its time in a room. I didn't play with it much. I have never had any desire actually to have children. And funnily enough, I've just been reading a book by Joe Lewell's entitled The God Hypothesis. And he's a hypnotherapist who has worked with a lot of experiences, and one woman that he worked with was exactly the same, and she actually was scared of babies, never wanted to hold a baby, and I've always been the same. And she saw the little babies up in the test tube things up on the ship, and it freaked her out. So it must have happened to me as well.
Yeah.
So I had all these fears through childhood. A fear of eyes. I had a thing about eyes. I remember my mum had to block out a picture of a cat in a book hiding behind a bush with just its eyes showing. I was terrified of that. Every time she'd open the page, I'd start, I don't like that, I don't like that. And she ended up blocking it out with a pen. Funnily enough, when I got into my teens, I got a bit of an obsession with eyes, and I used to drop them all over my school books. And they were always the eyes of the Greys, the big slanted eyes. So I was obviously, by the time I got into my teens, I was starting to come out of it. And then at age 15, I had a sleep paralysis experience where I became conscious in the middle of the night, couldn't move, I was paralysed, and the doorknob of the room was turning. And it was absolutely terrifying. I couldn't call out to my parents. They were sleeping at the other end of the apartment, so I couldn't call out. And then the next thing, I just blanked out. But the next morning I woke up, had sort of forgotten it, but there was something there. And obviously I'd had a contact experience, because after that I started feeling a connection with this teacher that I knew wasn't human. Turned out to be Mars, the tall grey who works with me. He's actually like a grey Zeta mantid. I think he's a hybrid. And it was after that I started calling on him and being aware of his presence in my life. So obviously that night I was taken out of body, and they obviously came and fetched me. And I started losing my fear to a certain extent. But it wasn't until a full-on encounter at age 30 in 1983 that I actually had them in the room, sat down, talked to them, and was told about my mission down here. I recognised them as family when I saw them. And all the fear just absolutely dissipated then. And I started understanding who and what I am and why I'm here.
Amazing. Let me ask you, how old is Maris?
Oh, my goodness. Probably many, many hundreds of years old, probably thousands of years old. We asked one of the Greys once how old they were, another teacher we knew, and he said, I'm over 1 million years old. But what it is, they don't look on death like we do. Death is a more conscious thing for them. And so they just step out of one body, and then if they need to come back, they go into another one. And so they don't really measure lifetimes the way that we do, where they're aware of their whole train of existence in and out of body.
Yeah, I was thinking about this because, as you know, there's been a bit of a change of the guard in the US, and there's some policies that have been bandied around. And one of the policies affecting women, I won't say the name of it, about having babies. We so identify with who we are as the body that a lot of religions say, it's criminal to stop a life mid, when you're pregnant. And I think about all those babies in test tubes up on ships. They're just like containers, aren't they? These forms, these human
That's
forms.
Right. The body's just, yeah. That's why the Greys call it a container. What they're saying is it's a soul container. And the physical body is absolutely nothing. Once we know how, we can come in and out of it at will. So passing over in death is just moving to a higher vibrational frequency. It's nothing.
Yeah, swapping your body out of one body and into another.
Yeah, I mean, why would you want to stay in an old worn-out body when you can have a new one?
I was having this conversation with someone recently. I think they were on the show. We were talking about death and people leaving the planet. And a good friend of mine died about 10 years ago. He was really into this subject. He was not very old. He was only in his mid to late 60s. And I identified that he had already reincarnated as one of his grandkids, even before he left his physical body. And it occurred to me during the conversation that the reason he died so young, he was just swapping the body. He was like, no, I'm done with this old body. I'm going to jump into a new one. Yes. So he's still here for the shift. That grandchild's like a teenager now. So he's still here for the shift, but he's in a nice new body. And I'm like, I totally get that. Yeah, because I had difficulty talking to him in spirit, and that's because he's already here in his physical form, in another physical form.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So when you contacted your family, what occurred? What realizations did you have? How old were you? You were about 30.
I was 30. Yes, we were actually living out in the country at the time. And my husband's family were visiting for the day, and they were all working outside, and I started feeling off colour, like I was coming down with the flu. So I excused myself and went inside. We had a 2-story house. I went upstairs to a back bedroom and lay down, and I started getting a really bad headache. I lay on the bed and started getting a bad headache, and I could hear this loud buzzing sound going on in my ears, which I had no idea what it was. And I thought, oh, it's giving me a headache. Anyway, the next moment I became awake and aware, but what I didn't realise was my body was out to it on the bed. My consciousness was aware, and I saw, I think there was about 3 greys in the room, and 2 of them were standing between me and the window, and they were so solid they were blocking out light from the window. And there was a third one there who I recognised as this teacher that I'd been in contact with. And I remembered we'd actually had a meeting out of the body during my sleep state the week before. And we'd stood on the bank of a stream, and we'd had a very, very long, deep conversation with each other. Other people were coming by, but his attention was on me. And what he was doing, he was asking my permission to enable more of my ET consciousness to be downloaded into my physical body. They can't ever do that without asking permission. It was almost like a walk-in type experience, because he's actually part of my higher soul. So it was like a part of him was going to step in, but he had to ask me my permission first, and of course I gave it. So he was also present in the room, and I was aware of something going on my crown chakra. I could feel movement up there, and I realise now, I've actually read of other people with this buzzing sound. I think it's when you open up to the astral, like out of body, and it's like the sound of the astral coming in through the crown chakra, and it's like a buzzing sound you're hearing. So anyway, the next thing I was aware of was sitting on the bed and speaking to these greys. And one of them, probably my teacher, because he's got a good sense of humour, made a joke about, you've hidden yourself out here long enough, it's time for you to get back to work. And they started explaining to me that I had to learn to meditate, which I had been sort of trying to do over the last few weeks, but not having much success with it. So what they did, they told me what you need to do is take up Tai Chi, because as you mentioned at the beginning, I've been a professional dancer. So meditation just wasn't something that I could sort of attune myself to. So my Grey family suggested that I take up Tai Chi, because as they explained, it's moving meditation, and having been a dancer, it'll teach you to meditate, but it's not like static meditation, you're moving. Now, back then in the 1980s in Australia, I didn't even know what Tai Chi was. I'd never heard of it. And they explained to me that it's like moving meditation. They said it's like yoga, only with more movement. I knew what yoga was, so okay, fair enough. And they said, you'll also be learning a natural healing modality, which I've never even heard of. I didn't even know there was such a thing. I had always been aware of some power in my hands, coming out of my hands for healing, but I had never pursued it and didn't know anything about it. The other thing they told me was that you'll have to move back to town to do all this. And it's going to take a bit of time, for all this to happen. So when I woke up, I had a very, very limited memory of all this going on. I sort of had an awareness that there was all this stuff for me to do, and I had an awareness that we were going to have to move, which I didn't want to do because we lived out in acreage, we were happy, we loved it. But over the next 3 years, so many things changed in our lives, circumstances changed so dramatically that we actually had to move back to town. It took us 3 years to do it, but we got there. And within a week of being in town, I found Tai Chi classes advertised in a shop window around the corner. And I went along to the first class to see what it was like. Absolutely loved it. It was like coming home. So I started studying Tai Chi. And around the same time, we had a rental property next door to our house, and new people came in, and they were a husband and wife from Tasmania. And the wife had been doing meditation for years, and her teacher, her meditation teacher, had only just moved up here and was planning on opening a closed meditation circle. And I was invited to join. I mean, I'd never meditated in my life, and here I was being invited to join a closed meditation circle. So there's two things, Tai Chi and meditation, both came into my life at the same time. Anyway, I took part in this group for 8 years, and during it, we were taught to do spiritual healing, and we were trained in channeling, which I actually found hard because the Greys aren't verbal. And I remember one of them trying to work through me once to channel, and these muscles in my throat, I could feel them contracting and contracting and contracting. And it was actually quite difficult, and I just couldn't do it. So what they got me doing, they got me doing automatic writing, which was easy. No worries. Used to get a lovely spiritual message through every week, and my meditation teacher used to encourage me by getting me to read it out at the end of the session. And what I didn't realise they were doing, they were training me to be a writer. And this is how I came eventually to write my books. All this training I had in automatic writing, I found writing in this way, with them speaking through me, very, very easy, because they wanted me to write books from the ET rather than the Earth human perspective on ET contact. Back then there was so much fear stuff being put out about the Greys, and as I clearly know now, and many, many more people know, that's absolutely wrong. They're here to help us. And so I got all this wonderful training, plus being introduced to a couple of friends, actually gypsy people, who both of them were authors, and they led a nomadic life at the time. And every time they passed through Brisbane, they'd come and visit us for a Reiki treatment from me, and they were helping me to write my manuscript. They'd take it off with them and put any corrections in, so they were doing editing for me on that. So I got a huge amount of help on the writing. So that's sort of how I got to be where I am now. Also, someone came into our meditation group who was doing Reiki, so I then eventually learned about that and went through to become a Reiki teacher as well. So that's how it's all come together.
Amazing. So you've been putting a lot of work and effort into like getting the message out through books, but speaking, I guess you're speaking, on the internet, but speaking publicly came much later. So
yeah.
Do many people around you in your daily life know who you are and why you're here, or do you hide it from them?
No, I try and be fairly open. Luckily, my husband's very open-minded. He doesn't have a problem with it whatsoever. One day when I was meditating, he came in the room and he saw my ET face. I
saw your ET face.
A couple of days before he was going to say anything, but he said he did eventually. So he's fine with it, no worries at all. Very open. The rest of the family, they know about it, but they don't talk about it. They don't ask me, so I just leave it. That's fine. If they're interested, they can ask. If they're not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, my family's the same, and I just insist on talking about stuff that I know they don't believe in and think I'm crazy, and I just keep talking. Like you can want me to shut up, but I'm not going to shut up.
That's right. Well, the more people who know about it, the better. That's what I was thinking. And now, top brass in the military are all coming out, and pilots and that coming out talking about it. So, it's not the woo-woo thing that it used to be.
Yeah, there's been a paradigm shift. A few years back, I had my brother staying with me for a while, and both my brothers, both are galactic souls like myself, but they're just not awake. They're just well and truly entrenched in the third dimensional paradigm. But I know that they're interested because they're total Trek people, and they just love all that sci-fi stuff. Just love it. Can't get enough of it.
Yes.
So I asked one of my brothers about it and said, well, what do you think? Do you think there are aliens here on Earth? And he said, well, I'd like to think so, but I don't think it's possible that they can get here, thinking that their propulsion system's like our propulsion system.
Yeah,
I'm like, if they used our propulsion system, they wouldn't go anywhere. But and so I was hounding him and I was saying, but would you like them? And he goes, yeah, I really like the idea of it. I just don't think it's possible. So it was interesting to see the way his mind was working. He wants it to be true, but he knows that it's not true.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that paradigm is changing, don't you think? With all the stuff that's coming out.
I think so. Yes, there's more understanding. Now, thank goodness they're opening up to quantum physics. So, even science is starting to open up to the fact that, hey, we're way more than just a third-dimensional physical being. We're multi-dimensional beings. And in actual fact, there is no time and no space. It's all right here, right now. And this helps to explain things like remembering past lives and seeing ghosts and all that sort of paranormal stuff. If you start to understand that, hey, we're interdimensional beings, everything's here right now, and so a past life, what we perceive as being past, coming into your consciousness. I mean, you're just remembering something that's happening right now.
Exactly. You know what I've noticed, Judy? I've noticed that a lot of women I've spoken, not hundreds, but a few are around your age group with the same sort of story. There's you and Dolly and Susie Hansen, and then Jacqueline, who was on the show the other day. You identified each other as siblings when you're in your ET form.
Yes.
That you're
Hi,
siblings.
Jacqueline.
So cute. And I was telling Preston and Dolly that because I was on their show the other day, and I was telling them that about you too. But yeah, you're all around the same age. Like I speak with, many people of many generations, but you're all women and of the same age. What was the agenda there? Like, did they give you the reason for that?
Well, I think it's like Dolores Cannon speaks about in her books, the 3 waves of volunteers. And I was born in the early 1950s, so I'm not exactly sure. I would at least be a second wave, maybe a first, I'm not sure. And these others would be the same. But I'm aware of people even older than I am, like in their late 70s and even early 80s, who I think were part of that as well. So I think really we've been coming here in dribs and drabs for probably the past 100 years, looking back where we are now. And I think there's way more of us down here than people realise. And some like me didn't carry the consciousness through at first, so we could experience totally being Earth human. And I still have limited consciousness of my contact upstairs. I mean, I have memory. I'm aware when I'm up there, but I usually can't bring it back. I have occasionally important things I can bring back, whereas others like Dolly and Preston have complete memories of their time up on the ship and their time down here. I think it's so those who can't remember very much, it's so we can remain focused as Earth humans, because that's what we're down here to learn, how and why and wherefore, about being a human, what it's all about, where do they stand in the scheme of things, what do we need to do to help them, etc.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention Sherry Wild. I haven't spoken to Sherry for years. Have you met Sherry?
I know her. I haven't met her, but I have a book and I've spoken to her.
Beautiful book, Forgotten Promise. Yeah, but yeah, again, all around the same sort of age generation as you, because I speak to galactic people who are younger, but they have a different mission. They have a different mission. I guess that your mission is. I mean, I know that you're here to, talk about love. Well, let's talk about the Zeta agenda and who they are. Like, who are they? Who are they in relationship to humans? And what do they want from us?
Okay. When we talk about greys, it's like we talk about humans. There are many, many different races of greys. And even within those races, I mean, it's like an Earth human. You could be an American, you could be an Australian, you could be English. It's the same with the greys. There are many, many different ones. The ones we always hear about are the Zeta reticulans from the Zeta reticuli system. And even within that system, there's about 30 different species as far as I know. When I personally use the term grey, I'm using it to denote insectoid as opposed to mammalian humans. Now, one of the grey races did have its beginning on Earth as the ant people. There was an insectoid ant people person species created down here long, long before us, the Earth human, I mean. And some of them actually have evolved, or they have evolved into being off-planet. They've moved off-planet. Or I think there are still some down here underground, but most of them have evolved off. Most of them have evolved off planet. So they have a very, very close tie with Earth. So I think that a lot of them are taking part in this program. I actually remember a life as one of them here in Australia, going back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But there, I vaguely remember life as an ant person. The Greys, I know that with the ant people, lost their ability to experience emotion. They became too technologically advanced. They were being attacked by a later reptilian species that I refer to as the repterans to differentiate them. They're Earth human reptilians who were developed out of a species of dinosaur, the same as modern day humans were developed out of a species of primate. Now, these ones actually hijacked the planet going back millennia. And so they're the ones who are causing most of the problems down here and blocking modern humanity from moving forward. A lot of the off-planet reptilians are fine. They're lovely people. They're very protective type people. So they've got a bit of bad name, a bad sort of negative label put on them as the Greys have. But the problem is it's the group down here, the reptarians, who are the problem. You know, the troublemakers. Not all of them are bad either. They're the main troublemakers. They are connected in with the Anunnaki that they talk about. I think they're partly reptilian too. So they actually did like an ethnic cleansing on the ant people and took away their ability to reproduce. And the ant people reciprocated. So there was wars going on, and between the two lots, they just about ruined the whole planet. And this is something that the Greys have carried as a soul memory, and feeling very, very sad about it, because when the ant people were down here first, they worked very, very, very closely with the elementals, the elemental Devic kingdom, or Devic. And they were like caretakers of nature. And those ones who are still here still have this role, caretakers of nature. And you know, they wrecked a planet and they wrecked their civilization, and they still carry this huge pain of having done this. And so they need genetics from Earth plane humanity to help them get their emotions back. And Earth plane humanity is too driven by negative emotions. So they need the spiritual. They need the spiritual understanding of the Greys, and so the universal governing body has allowed the two groups to come together to exchange DNA. So that's basically what this whole Grey project, hybrid program is about helping Earth humans to become more spiritual and helping this group of Greys, the ant people, to become more emotional. So that's sort of the bottom line of what's going on. At the same time, there is a parallel hybrid program being carried out known as MyLabs, military abductions. And what the reptarians have done, they've created like bio-robotic forms that Dr. Stephen Greer talks about. He refers to them as the PLFs, programmed life forms. And they're made to look like the Greys. In fact, I think genetics were taken from Greys' bodies when the ships crashed. And these beings have been created. They have reptilian DNA in them, or reptarian, I should say, and they carry implants so they can be controlled. And these are causing a lot of fear. The MyLab abduction experiences often have these programmed life forms involved that look like Greys, and they're not very nice. They are negative. And this is what people are experiencing who fear the Greys, whereas the genuine Greys are only here to help.
Wow, interesting. So the off-planet galactic population don't have those android grey, what did you call them, PL life forms?
PLS, programmed life forms.
Programmed life forms. They're not, because I had a bit of a chat to my mom about it. They said, well, you know, those sort of android ones we can send down to planets and they won't get sick and they won't be harmed like when you're more fleshy. And we can sort of utilize them a bit like, you know, a bit like sending a drone down, but they're flesh, but they're robots.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on. Yeah.
Okay. This is really confusing, because when the ant people lost their ability to reproduce, they were very, very advanced scientifically, and they created a physical form in that reptoid sort of form of what the Greys take. And yes, it is. It's almost like a robot, but at the same time, it's a non-physiological body as opposed to a physiological body. Now, we're controlled by our consciousness. Once our consciousness is independent of the body, so it can step in and out. And so these, reproduced grey bodies, which some of them are, they're actually quite widely used, these bodies, by a number of people off planet. They can place their consciousness into them. And so they're bio-robots almost, but they have a human consciousness or grey consciousness within them. So yes, they are. They're used like spacesuits.
Yeah, what does Carol say here? Yes, that's what I understand too about the drones, Karen. Yeah, Carol, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, so it gets very confusing, very confusing for people.
Well, I guess, they've been developed, and the MyLab people that maybe have more nefarious intentions can use them, and also the ETs that don't have as much nefarious intentions can also use them. Oh my God, it's 11/11. I forgot today is 11/11 today.
My
and
goodness,
it's 11/11 on the 11/11th. I have to do a screenshot on my phone. Hang on. Yay, did it. 11/11 on the 11th.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
And we're talking about Android Greys at 11/11. Yeah, I'm also talking at the Academy of Light today. It's a big day, 11/11, big day for consciousness. So there's a few stories about the sort of little android droney. What did you call them again with the life forms?
PLF, programmed life forms.
Programmed life forms. Love that.
Programmed life forms. Yeah.
That's just
Stephen Bringer talks about them quite a lot. He gives out some wonderful information.
Carol says she has to wait till tomorrow. Yeah, it's 11/11 for you guys tomorrow, but it's we're in Australia. It's 11/11 for us now.
10/11.
10/11. So what happens up on the ship? Where do they live? Do they live on their ships? Do they live on a planet? What's going on?
Yes, look, both. Some live on planets, some live full-time on the ships. In this life, as in my grey form, I'm not aware of living on a planet. The planet I live on is down here, Earth. So in that form, I'm an Earth human. But my grey form, I work up on the ship. And I've had a number of experiences up there that I've talked about in other interviews. One interesting one that happened in the late 1990s was I woke up one morning and I had a memory of being up there, but couldn't remember what I'd been doing. So we were going to the beach that day, so I went to put some suntan lotion on my legs, and on my lower right leg there was a cut about that long, and there were little blisters all along,
3 inches,
like it had been cauterized. So it wasn't there when I went to bed. So, oh my God, all the memory flooded in. I remembered very clearly of standing at the head of a bed in my grey form. At first I thought I was actually lying on the bed or sitting up, but I wasn't. I was actually standing behind it. And my human body, in its astral form, was lying on the bed. And there were two of the small greys down the end, and they were practicing using a laser cutter. I was guiding them, and they were using it around the lower part of my leg. And they were having trouble. The one who was using it was having trouble getting down, under my leg. And I was saying, turn the leg. You've got to turn it if you want to take it right down. Anyway, they must have done a really good job because they cauterized it. There was no bleeding, no pain whatsoever. And it healed very quickly within a few days. But one part of it must have been pretty deep. I think it was where they were trying to get around underneath, because I had a scar there for, oh my goodness, probably about a year or more afterwards.
Was it painful?
No,
was
not
it painful.
Not
no,
not in the least. No pain whatsoever. There was no blood on my bed or anything like that. And I just curse myself to this day. I don't think I even had a camera back then. And if I could only have taken a photo
Take a photo of it, yeah. So let me get this right. Is the
Taken a
scar
photo.
still there? Has the scar disappeared
No, it's
now?
not. It's not. That's not. No,
It's
it was
disappeared.
there up until quite a few years I had it, but it's
Okay.
eventually.
So let me get this right. Your body, your physical body, is in your bed. Like they didn't take your body up to the ship, and you're outside of your body in your astral form, talking to a couple of greys in their physical form.
Yeah.
And you're guiding them as you know, trying to help him use the laser cutter thing on your physical body. That's fantastic.
Well, it was actually my astral body, because if something happens to your astral body out there, and I've got a couple of other examples of this, you can bring the injury back into the physical body.
Oh, he was cutting your astral body, not your physical body.
Yeah, I think. Look, it could have been the physical body, but I wasn't aware that it was taken from the bed. I think it was my astral body. I'm not sure. Not sure.
Oh, okay.
I was
a little
out
confusing.
anyway. The consciousness wasn't in it. It's very, very confusing. Because, I mean, we have a physical body, we have an astral body, we have an etheric body, we have a causal body, you know.
There's a question here. Good morning. Can ant people shapeshift like reptilians? That's an interesting question. I'm not sure who that is. As I say, Facebook's not connecting to your identity. So I'm not sure if that's Elsa asking that question or who that is. Someone from Facebook.
Yeah.
Can the ant people shapeshift like reptilians?
Some can. Some can. Most of the higher ones can.
Do we know anything about the greys that show up appearing as clowns? Leslie says this. Show up appearing as clowns. I saw one when I was little. Leslie says.
Yeah. Some of the greys do that to try and stop children being scared of them. But again, they don't quite realise that they end up terrifying the child. These are the sort of things that ones like me are down here to try and explain. And I know that I've spoken to them on several occasions and said, look, you know, turning up like a clown isn't going to help matters at all. All it does is make children scared of clowns. So one turned up at my place once as an owl and terrified me. It was in the middle of the day, and this darn owl was hanging around for about 3 days. Despite our horses and dogs and cats being all around, the owl turned up every day. And every time I went outside, it was staring at me. And I've got a bit of a phobia about birds. So I wasn't too happy about this. And one day in the middle of the day, I was sitting under the house reading a book, and our house was a high set, what they call Queenslander style, up on stumps. But it was mainly closed in because we used to lock the dogs and cat under there at night. And I was under there reading a book, and this narrow doorway opening out onto like a courtyard thing we had, and this owl flew in through this doorway and landed on a beam above my head. So, being the brave soul I am, I raced out from under the house with the book over my head and stayed outside waiting for the rotten thing to fly out again. Of course, I never saw it fly out. And so eventually I snuck back in absolutely terrified, and there was no owl there. And I know it was them.
You know it was them.
They do. They have a very twisted sense of humour. That's all I can say about the greys.
Yeah. Facebook user says it's Desley. Hey, Desley, I think you've got another question here. It's very relatable info. ET ambassador, ant insects, Swami Terthra. Oh, no, this is Swami. Hi, Karen. Oh, that's Swami. Oh, hi, Swami. That's not Desley. I don't know. Yeah, as I said, we're having a few internet problems today, and Facebook is not connecting to people's identity. Hello, Swami. Good to see you here. And Leslie says that her experience was frightening. She was frightened. Yeah.
Frightened.
I thought that said fascinating, but it actually says frightening. You've shared a story, and I think you've shared it many times, of one of your conscious memories up on the ship where someone is frightened. Do you want to share that story with us today for the viewer audience?
Yeah, Wow, yeah, that was really interesting. Good learning curve for me as a grey. Yeah, one night up on the ship, I walked into the clinic. I knew that we had work to do, so I walked into the clinic, and as I came around the doorway, there was a man lying on a bed, and he caught sight of me. And the look of absolute sheer terror on his face was awful. I sort of stopped dead, and oh my God. And I was trying to communicate to him because he'd been taken up a number of times, and we'd never hurt him, but he was absolutely terrified. And I was trying to say to him, look, we're here to help you. We brought you up on the ship. You need some help. And I was literally shouting at the top of my telepathic voice, trying to get through to him, because we can't speak verbally. We have to speak by telepathy. And when a human's in a state of fear, it's like there's a cocoon wrapped around them, and there's no way you can get a telepathic message through to them. So there was no way I could calm him down, no matter what I said. So eventually a couple of other ones came in and touched him on the head or something. I can't remember what they did, but they knocked him out so he'd be unconscious. And he was lying on the bed. And the job that we had to do, with three of us grouped around his head, we had to remove an implant from the top of his head. Well, that was where I went in anyway. I don't know where it was. It might have even been behind his sinuses. But this implant had been put in by this negative group down here, who were controlled by the reptarians. And it was causing him to have negative perceived experiences with rays, or I should say perceived experiences with negative rays. And they were controlling him. So we had to get it out. And I have a really clear memory of this. My long grey fingers going down through the crown chakra, trying to find this implant inside his head and trying to detach it. And I was having a little bit of trouble with it, but I eventually got it sort of unhooked, or whatever it is I had to do with it, and I got it out. And I remember clearly turning to the other two who were working with me. One was holding his head, and, because we had to keep his head very steady because we were working around the brain. And I remember very clearly saying, oh, that's a relief, we've got it out, but he should be safe now. And the funny thing was, he had a very distinctive looking face. He had like a moustache and beard, coming around in a circle. And I remember thinking to myself, gee, if I ever see you down on planet Earth, I'm going to recognise you. Anyway, I eventually did. I saw him.
Oh.
Yeah, of course I never said
Where did you see?
But,
where you saw him in Australia, obviously. Where did you see him?
No, he was actually in England, and he'd actually been in touch with my co-author Helene and I, because he and his son were having contact experiences, and we'd spent a lot of time helping him to move past the fear. And then he went and got some hypnotherapy from someone in America, and they were obviously on the negative side, and they hooked him right in again using like a post-hypnotic suggestion or something, and this implant had been put in. And so this was why we were trying to help him, and I had a bit of a personal thing in it, because he'd been in contact with us. So I was going to try and help him.
When you were helping him, you had taken your consciousness out of your physical form, and it was now in a grey form, and you were working as a grey form, with the same consciousness.
And at that point, I'd never actually seen him because he was living in England. And it was after that, sometime after, he sent us a photo of himself. And as soon as I saw the photo, I thought, oh my God, that's the fellow I was working up on the ship.
There you go. So interesting. There's a few things here I want to unpack. When he was in his fear and his terror, he was cocooned, and you couldn't get through to him telepathically. Now, this is such a fascinating statement, Judy, because when we are in our fear, we are cocooned, and not only can we not hear the greys trying to telepath, but we can't hear our spirit guides or our soul or our higher self or our angels or our ET guides connecting to us and giving us messages. We're cocooned. We're in this little bubble of fear. And, and that's what's been happening on planet Earth for so long. We've been pumping out fear-based messages through our media systems over and over and over, and they continue. And, I was telling Judy before that ever since, November a few days ago when there was an election. I've been in damage control. Everyone's in fear. And they're believing their stressful thoughts, but they're not their stressful thoughts. It's the thoughts being pumped out through the media. They're believing these thoughts, and they're cocooning themselves in fear, and they're just literally pinching themselves off from their own wisdom and guidance. It's so interesting.
It's so so sad, because it's interesting. I a very, very good talk by Ross Coulthard, the Australian journalist,
who's
also trained as a lawyer.
Big fan of Ross.
He was talking to a group of scientists who are really doing investigation into the unidentified UFOs, unidentified flying. I can't say the other thing. Anonymous, you know what I'm trying to say. UAPs, I call it, something phenomena. And so many retired military people are coming forward, and very, very highly respected people. And it's the media who absolutely refuse to deal with ET contact without bringing the giggle factor in. And he was saying,
well,
frustrating.
Yes. It's frustrating, but that is changing, and he is changing that. I forgot to do a station call, so I'm just going to remind people, because I forgot. I'm so into this conversation. I'm having so much fun, that you're listening to ATP Media, Awakening and Expanding Consciousness with Karen Swain on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, and we are on syndicated radio on 107.7 and 105.3 FM all over the United States and Canada, and we're also streaming on 8 platforms today. We're on Rumble and Odyssey and Twitch and Facebook and YouTube, but Facebook is just having some problems connecting. I don't know what's going on with Facebook. We've been having problems with this platform connecting to Facebook. They're tweaking things, but anyway, we are connected. So we're getting all over the place, Judy. This conversation's going out to about over 300,000 people as we speak. So I just want to say hello and thank you for listening, and I love your comments. I love more people to join the YouTube, Facebook, Rumble or Odyssey live streams and pop in your comments and to hear your stories. But getting back to Ross, God, I'm loving Ross. He is actually changing the face of mainstream media, because he is on a mainstream media news network, News Nation, and he's talking about some amazing things. He's talking about consciousness. He's talking about channeling. Yes. He's talking about telepathy.
So proud he's an Aussie. He's an Australian.
Well, I think he was
chose to be born
in
this country.
Yeah.
Was he? Oh, that's all right.
Well, he grew up here. He worked here and grew up here. He now lives in the States, but he did grow up here and work here. He was a 60 Minutes reporter. He was one of the mainstream media. He was one of those he was one of the people that would damn this conversation, and now he's having it. That's what I was so amazed at, because all the sort of 60 Minutes mob down here, I don't know about the 60 Minutes in the States, but they would, talk about this stuff and make it, this ridicule it and giggle at it. Yeah. Make you sound stupid.
The giggle factor they talk about.
The giggle factor. So the fact that he came from that legacy media and now he's he's in the States, I don't think the legacy media down under has quite reached the expansion of News Nation anyway. But things are changing. Things are going to really change in the next couple of years.
Things are going to change. Yes.
It's
the ETs are tentatively thinking of making open contact within the next 5 years, but I mean, they won't make any predictions because things change, depend on how things go. The main problem that's stopping them is fear. But when I talk about fear, it's in the sense of like religious intolerance, racial intolerance, colour intolerance, language intolerance. That's the fear that's really, really blocking this planet at the moment. It's the opposite to unconditional love. Unconditional love shows compassion and understanding and acceptance of everybody, no matter what religion, colour, race, whatever. But people don't even get on down here with people of their own Earth human species. So how in the name of heaven are they going to get on with ETs when they come here and they look so different? This is what I can see as a real big block for ETs coming down here.
Yeah. Yes, I know, humans. I mean, you look across the world and you see the collective consciousness of humanity. You think it's never going to happen because
it's just,
we're so divisive and warring. And Carol
it's
says she's looking
divisive.
forward.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear your
yes.
story
People
one
don't
day, Carol.
realise.
Carol says that she's looking forward to the real disclosure. I
Yeah,
think disclosure's happened and happening. I mean, it's like drip feeding. It's happening. But I have this thought about, the incoming presidents of the US. I know that we're Australians and it should have no impact to us, but I really feel like what's happened in the US is a global thing. Like, you hear everyone talking about Americans. It's actually the world. It's actually what's happened is going to impact the world. And last time he was in office, we had the 2020 and 2021, we had the pandemic. And I feel like in the next 4 years, we're also going to have another global something happen that he'll have to deal with.
Yes. I was just talking to someone about that the other day. Yeah.
Something big like 2020 is in store for us that will bring humanity together. We'll stop fighting and saying which politician's right and which is wrong and which side you're on and which side I'm on, and being upset or being happy and elated. I mean, who cares? Just be happy.
That's right. Well, people want 5D, bring on the new age. When's 5D going to happen, But they don't realise 5D is not about being clairvoyant and psychic and that. It's about practicing unconditional love and accepting everybody equally. Not being racist, not being religiously intolerant. That's what 5D is about.
Making the best of it. As I said, I've been in damage control and I've had clients that are so upset, and I'm like, well, as a being of light here to spread light on the planet, your upset is not helping. Like, things happen that you don't agree with, make the best of it. What's good about it? What can you find that makes you feel good? Like, that's the work we're here to do as humans, which a lot of people don't do. They're too busy being right about their point of view. But I want to go back to something we were talking about before, this veil of forgetfulness that we have as humans, or the river of oblivion it's been called. Have the Greys ever explained to you, exactly how that works? Because they don't seem to have that. Like, they know who they are as souls or consciousness. They know they're connected to the all mind. They know they're an extension of source energy. They don't seem to have that same forgetfulness of who they are in a grey form as we do as humans. Have they ever explained to you how that works?
Very, very fully. Look, what I'll do, I'll deal with that first, and then I'll explain about a thing called the human ladder. It's a teaching we were given many, many years ago. Why there's a veil of forgetfulness is planet Earth is a school planet. In fact, about the best school planet in the whole universe. And as I said, what would be the point of sitting for an exam if you had all the questions beforehand?
Exactly.
So for us to be able to remember everything that's happened before would be the equivalent of having all the questions before. Each life we're sitting for an exam to see how we practice unconditional love and to the extent we're able to practice it, as opposed to fear. And so this is why we come in with a clean slate. We have to start from the beginning and see if we can take another step along the reincarnational ladder to improve on the life we had before. That's the bottom line. Now, the teaching they gave us was about what they call a human ladder, and what it is, it's a cycle of evolution that all human type species follow throughout the universe, and there are 10 levels. The first level, level 1, is where Earth plane humanity are, and many other, off-planet species as well. I think they tell us about 1,000 others. And at level 1, we can access approximately 10% of our potential conscious awareness. Once we evolve after many lives of incarnation on level 1, we can evolve to level 2, in which we can access approximately 20% of our entire conscious awareness, and so on and so forth, right up to level 10, which is basically God consciousness, where we can
Full
access
awareness.
full conscious awareness. I've actually got a picture here. I did it up. I'll just hold it up. I did it up in like a ladder. I'm trying to get it.
Is that on your website, Judy?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it is. It's certainly in the book, in my book, The Zeta Message. We were actually given a crop circle to illustrate it, and that's the crop circle there on the cover of the Zeta Message book.
Oh, that's the human ladder, is it? That crop circle.
That's the human ladder.
Let me just share. Let me share your website here. This is Judy's website for people who are listening on radio. We're looking at Judy's website, info about the Greys. Now, where you've got a photograph of that crop circle, the human ladder. There we go.
Yeah, this was the version that I and another friend who was also in on these lessons, we tried to draw that. This was before this crop circle came up on TV, and we were trying to draw it because I was in the process of writing the Zeta Message at the time, and I wanted to put it in the book. But it's really hard to. It was really hard to get that spiral shape, and so this is why they came up with the crop circle, which is very similar. I'm just holding it up at the side there so you can see. You can see it's very, very similar. But then they advised me to put it into that ladder formation, which is
there it is. There's the crop circle.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah,
there she is. Yeah, but it's a 2D rendition of it. But when you see it in 3D, it's like a toroidal.
It's 3D. Yeah, that was something that I didn't understand that at first, because two teachers were teaching us, Auris and Maris, and Auris explained to me that it's about this ladder of human consciousness. And what I couldn't figure out, that crop circle's only got 6 arms, but there's 10 levels. But what it is, those other little circles in there are representing beyond the 3D. Because once we get up to about, say, the 4th, 5th level of the human ladder, we move past physicality. And so that's what those other little circles represent, those who have moved past the 3D level.
And that explanation is in which book?
That's in, the best explanation is in Extraterrestrial Presence on Earth. The story of us actually getting it all is in the Zeta Message. That's the book I co-authored with Helene, that lady there.
That's Helene
her daughter.
Hello, Helene.
That's Helene. Her daughter Kira was getting very, very full-on conscious contact with the Greys, and we were introduced by a mutual friend to help them out, because they'd never heard of anything like that. They just weren't in it at all. They ran a family business. They weren't into this stuff at all. So Helene and I have since become very good friends, and it was not long after we were given the teaching on the crop circle, the human ladder, that crop circle came up on TV. And luckily I saw it and grabbed the video camera and took a shot of it, or recorded it. And sure enough, we asked Auris the next day, and he said, yes, we put it on for you. We jokingly said to them, why don't you give us a crop circle? And they did.
I've got to say, I love this image that you've got on your website of these massive ships over Uluru. That is such a cool image.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Beautiful image, yeah. But I also love your explanation here. I think that's beautiful. But let me ask you, Judy,
there was actually a crop circle that looked a little bit like that.
Really?
There was a crop circle that actually looked even more like that.
When you incarnate as a human being, when you incarnate as a human being, there's a bit of delay. We keep talking over each other because the internet's a bit sketchy today. When you incarnate as a human being, can you attain all level? Like, can you attain every level? Is it possible to have every level while in human form, wearing human DNA?
It's hard to explain, because human is sort of a physical thing. Once we move out of the body, we really just become pure consciousness. So the higher levels of the ladder.
I know you can, we can attain it out of body, but I'm talking about while in body. My guys are saying yes to that. They're saying yes to that, but they're also saying that you do need to activate your DNA. That you need to change it. You need to have your DNA activated. Yeah, more DNA
It
strands.
would take a lot of work. Look, you might get some very rare individual who can do it, but I've never met anyone who can. I can't do it. So
Yeah,
well, that doesn't mean much.
There's a story. Yeah, me either. There's a story in the Thoba Prophecy, which was a book written by an French Australian guy in the 90s, 80s. He wrote the book. It's actually his experience being on a 9th level planet. So you're talking about these levels, and he's on a 9th. So they're humanoid beings that live there, hermaphrodites, 9 foot tall hermaphrodite human beings, and they are in a 9th level of consciousness. So this is outside of dimension. This is talking about what you're talking about, in that they have consciousness, but they said that they created the body that was Jesus Christ, because his DNA was a completely different structure to the human DNA in order for Jesus to have the level of consciousness he did. Now, not the baby that was born Jesus, but the teacher that came out of the desert. Apparently there are 2 different beings according to this book, and that he held a completely different DNA structure that they created in order for him to hold that level of consciousness. What do you think about that story, Judy?
Yeah, I have read this book, and no, it's not 9th level of the human ladder they're talking about, it's something else. It was a good book. There was a couple of things in it I didn't quite agree with, but it was still a good book. I've read it a couple of times, but no, that 9th level planet, that's nothing to do with the human ladder. I would have put them, no, I would have put them, I don't know what the levels were that they were talking about, but for that race, I would put them probably about the 2nd or 3rd level of the human ladder.
Oh, okay, there you go. Wow.
Yeah, from what I understand. Yeah.
That's fascinating. Yeah, look, I mean, there's so much information out there. It's hard to sort of put it all together and in our puny human understanding. I once we leave the body and we're free of the river of oblivion, or the, whatever, the bubbles of fear, we can gain access to all this information, which is what channelers do, tapping into higher consciousness and bringing through that higher consciousness. But even when channelers do that, they still have their human perspective that they need is filtered through their human perspective.
Yeah. There's a lot of good channeling, but there's also some channeling that's done from down here by the Reptarians back in about 1956. A way of getting inside psychics' minds was developed down here. So some channeling, don't trust all channeling. I once asked Maris. Sorry.
Go on. You once asked Maris. Go on.
I once asked my teacher Maris how to tell, because there's so much information being put out and so confusing. And I said, look, how do you tell what's right and what's wrong? And he said, look, don't listen to the words or look at the person. Listen to the energy behind the words. He said, is it coming from love or is it coming from fear? So if you get a channel message that's putting down the greys or putting down this or putting down that, you can tell it's not genuine. And what they do, I'm not saying that there aren't genuine messages from, Archangel Michael and Ascended Masters or whoever, but they tend to use those titles for the fake channeling because they know that they'll suck people in. Oh, it's from an angel. Oh, it's got to be right, but it's not.
Yes, I was listening to a channel the other day who's a very, very well-known channel, and he's been channeling for years. And I was listening to a recent message on YouTube, and I can tell what's what. And I was experiencing, not that the message was nefarious in any way, but what had happened is that when he first started channeling, he was bringing through this exalted wisdom. But after many, many, many years of channeling, it's kind of like they've pulled back their energy because they want the baby to walk on its own. Like they want him to sort of know the information. But what happens with some channelers is that they're well known as a channel, and so they still go, I'm now going to channel this entity or whatever, but it's actually just them speaking, but they're telling you that they're channeling. Like that's what I experienced as I was hearing him. And my guides they've told me a lot about this, but it's not like he's doing a bad thing. But what I was noticing, they were referring to themselves as I, which is a very human thing. We identify as I. When you're speaking with spirit, they usually, don't talk about themselves as the I made this decision.
Right.
I'm telling you. They usually say we. So I found that quite telling.
That's an interesting point, Karen. Yeah, I totally agree with that, because I know when my lot talk, I would never use the word I. It's always
that's a very human thing, because we identify as the singular and they identify more unified. It was interesting what you were saying before.
Often
You're going.
Yeah, the one who's channeling is part of your own higher self anyway, as I know Mara said with me. So it's very hard to to identify, is it me or is it him,
Yeah, exactly. What my guides have said to me is, what we'd like, we appreciate all the channelers on the planet, because to evolve human consciousness, we've had to move people's personalities out of the way so we can bring through this message. And so we really appreciate. But what they want people to do is to channel that higher wisdom as part of the I, as part of their personality, rather than saying, now I'm going to channel my higher self or some higher consciousness, like to bring through that message as you. Like when I spoke to, the entity known as Jesus, he said, I never said I was channeling. I never said I'm channeling God. He just says, I am God. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. It's like going back to what we were talking about in the beginning, like own it.
Yeah.
I am love. I am grace. I am God. I am that. Which I speak. Yeah. What have we got? We've got about 15 minutes to go. Any other fascinating things you want to tell us? I know it races. In the next 10 minutes, any other fascinating stories you have for us, Judy?
I'm just trying to have a think. I've got some notes here somewhere. Yes, I had another very interesting experience. One night I woke up with a fright, with this clicking sound going on in my ear. And at first I thought, well, is there an insect in my pillow or something? And then I remember that just before I woke up, I'd been having a conversation with someone up on the ship. And it was the Zeta or Mantid, I can't remember who it was, a Mantid or a Zeta. It was their verbal speech that was ringing in my ear. It sounded very much like a dolphin. And I could actually remember we were having a very, very ordinary conversation up there, just asking each other, how's your day been, or what's the weather like down there or something, and this clicking sound, it's so strong in my ear, it gave me a fright and woke me up. So, that was an interesting experience too.
Wow. So Judy says she's getting your book. I've actually got all Judy's books for people who want to support the show. I forget to tell people about this. Yeah, if you want to support the show, I've always got a link under all the internet platforms that you can support the show with. But I also put people's books. I've been doing this for years and I hardly get anything from it. I shouldn't be so negative. I also put people's books on the web page. Use this share screen on the web page that I created for Judy back in 2020. Actually, this is the web page that has Judy's story and it has her books there. So if you use those affiliate links, I get a couple of cents if you buy Judy's books from there. But we've also got today's conversation and the conversation we had back in 2020 where I was yabbering a lot. And if you want to hear that, it was a great conversation. We had a lot of laughs, actually, Judy.
We'll have to go back and listen to
it. So the Greys, let's talk future. What do they tell you about what's happening in our future timeline?
They won't predict, because, as I said, we create our future through the way we think and the way we focus our minds. So the future is changing all the time. This is why they won't even predict when they're going to come. They said possibly we're aiming for within about the next 5 years, but they won't make predictions.
But have they told you anything about what you would like?
What I was going to talk about, I just remembered another interesting experience that I had, which links the Greys, again, very much like the Ant people, in with the Devic kingdom. I went over to the UK in 1995 and visited a sacred site over there known as the Rollright Stones, and spent time standing in the middle of the circle and all the usual things. And 3 weeks after I came back to Australia, I was taken back there in astral form, and I was actually laid down on the ground, and a needle about this long with the most beautiful blue crystal on the end of it was put into my third eye chakra right there.
Wow.
And what they were doing, there was information in the crystals that they wanted me to write about in my books. This was before I'd even started writing. And the information was downloaded into my chakra. Anyway, I woke the next morning and I actually had a little crescent-shaped scar there on my third eye. And I still have a little lump there where the needle went in. And the ones who were doing it, they were holding me down. There was about 3 of them, and they looked like fairy folk. But as I realised later, they were actually little greys. And I was fighting them. I was terrified, struggling to try and get up. Let me go, let me go. Ow, ow, it hurts, because it hurt like anything. And when it went in slightly off centre because I was struggling. But anyway, they got it in there, which is the main thing. And I asked Oris or Maris about it later, and he said, yeah, it's okay. They managed to do it. It was all right. So that was a very interesting experience, because the sacred site that I visited, it is a very, very well-known site for the fairy folk. There's a fairy mound there, and a very, very magical site, and they still hold summer solstice festivals and things there. So that was a good connection with the Greys, being connected with the fairy folk.
What were they doing to your third? Like, why were they doing it? What was the effect
There was
of it?
It was a download of information that they wanted me to put in the books. This was just prior to me starting to write the books. And this blue crystal encapsulated the information that they wanted to put in. And it was put in via the needle. It was like a acupuncture thing, you know.
Could they not just deliver it through telepathy, like a telepathic download? Why did they use a needle and a crystal?
I don't know. The colour that my teacher Maris works with is blue, so I think the crystal, it was a blue crystal that contained the information, and it did take quite a while for it to unload. It took years for it to come through.
Oh, interesting. When you say blue, was it like an indigo blue or a turquoise blue, or?
Oh, just bright aqua, sparkling, beautiful. Aqua. Yeah, aqua.
Nice.
About the same colour blue as you have up on your screen there.
One of my favourite colours. Yeah, like the colour behind me. Where's my view? Like the colour of the ocean. Yeah, a beautiful bright blue aqua ocean. Yeah, it's you should see my house. I've got that colour everywhere.
Sparkling, just gorgeous, sparkling gem.
Oh,
and that was when I started getting the download. Okay, start writing from our perspective. That was what they wanted.
Yeah. So they haven't given you any, like, I know they don't do predictions about disclosure, but are they sort of helping humanity overcome some of the hurdles that we need to go through in order to bring us together? Because, you know, the thing is that we could all come together in unity and love without any drama, but it is those times of drama that we come together in love. Like the floods, people talk about, who was I listening to online the other day? You know, during the floods that he went down there, and Dr. Phil he went down and he was helping people during the hurricanes in Florida, and not one person asked what religion they were or what party they voted for or what opinions they had. Everyone just came together in unity and love to help each other. Like, does humanity really have to go through that in order to love each other? Some would say yes. But have they said anything to you about?
Well, this is why they keep giving out the message of love, not fear. But it's only humans who can do it. They can't make us do it. People have to make that choice as to whether to buy into all the religious and racial intolerance and, kicking migrants out and all this stuff. That's not expressing unconditional love. We have to have unconditional love for everybody, regardless of race, colour, creed, whatever. In the higher dimensions, there is no race and religion. You know, we talk about God being universal consciousness. God doesn't have a religion. God is just love. unconditional love. That's the bottom line. And that's what they just keep pushing that, and they make us do it through our podcast. They keep bringing this point up, and they keep saying, look, only you can do it. We can't make you. You have to accept love, choose love over fear. And that's why we're going through all this stuff at the moment, massive testing.
Massive testing. Yeah, I mean, there's that old saying, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Yes.
I would choose happiness over right all the time. But in the higher realms, there's no opinion either, or judgment, because what I've noticed is that people have these opinions which are stressing them out and upsetting them, and it's not their own opinion. It's like my brother who's such an angelic being. He's such a beautiful, loving soul. When he talks about, this politician that has got into power, Trump, he goes into a red rage. His face goes bright red. He goes into a rage and tells me how horrible he is. And I look at him and I'm like, that's not your opinion. That's not your opinion. That's not even who you are. You're not even an ugly person like that. And so it just dumbfounds me that people have these opinions that stress them out and upset them, and it's not even their opinion. So, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
What people need to really understand down here is that we have been controlled and disempowered right from day one. In some cases, the God of the Old Testament was one of the reptarians, sending people out to fight each other in wars. Their whole agenda is divide and conquer. And that's how they keep humanity disempowered. Our empowerment is coming together in oneness. And what also is important for people to understand is that both political wings, far right, far left, the controllers are behind both.
Right.
And they both. And so we've been controlled through politics and religion. So we have to come to a real clear understanding of that and just stand back from both. There's a good example of that
going on right now. Exactly. My message has been to the light workers, not to people who don't identify themselves as light workers, that you came to spread light, and your opinion that's upsetting you is not doing what you said you'd come here to do. So find a way to see the light in any situation. Paul Selleck, who's a beautiful channel. His personality is interesting, but his channeling, they move him out of the way significantly enough.
Higher part of himself.
Sublime messages. He says, when you see the divine in what you look at is transformed. So that's like everything. When you can look at something that your opinion would think is heinous or horrible or terrible, but you see the divine in it, as you put your focus on the divinity, like the divine, the reasoning, the intelligence, the higher intelligence when you find that higher intelligence in something that your personality might judge as I don't want, then you transform it. Yeah. We've got 3 minutes to go. Darling one, you are fabulous. Love you so much. You are just amazing.
Thank you so much for having me, Karen. And thank you to everyone for listening.
Thank you for being on Earth and doing what you do and spreading love. You are a real love bunny, spreading a lot of love, and thank you for everyone that has been who has been listening and watching.
Can I just quickly, if we've just got a couple more minutes, to sum up what the Greys have taught us? It's one, to understand our universe in terms of oneness, to understand our universe in terms of energy, and to understand ourselves in terms of oneness and energy, thus enabling us to choose love over fear.
Beautiful. That's perfect. Yeah, we are not our bodies or our mind or our personalities or our opinions or judgments. We are energy.
Right.
We are energy, and we have we have the ability to manipulate, change, transform, shift the energy. Flow our energy in a way that creates more love and light and disclosure and connection here on planet Earth. Thanks again, Dying One. It's been so beautiful to chat with you again. Just remind people quickly of your website and YouTube channel.
Yes, UFOgreyinfo.com is our website, and our YouTube channel is youtube.com/user/ the Zeta message, and it's all one word with a capital T, capital Z or Z in American, and a capital M, the Zeta message.
Big love. Thanks again. Bye for now.